On today's episode, is it finals or bust for the Blues? We take a deep dive down to the bottom of the ladder and a new face in the top 5 of the rookie rankings. All that and more on today's episode of Zero Hanger TV. So it's been 10 years since Carlton last made the finals, but Adam Cerra has come out and said that the season isn't a complete bust if they don't make the finals this year.
Yeah, it's probably not what Blues fans wanted to hear, but to be fair to Adam, I think he was certainly put on the spot at Monday's press conference, and it's certainly not an easy one to answer, but he did come out and say that the playing group wouldn't see it as a failed campaign if they didn't make the top 8. And as you mentioned, the last time they played finals was 2013, and they didn't actually finish top 8 that year, funnily enough. But yeah, look, it does raise a question with how the Blues are going at the moment. They do sit in 8th spot. They've got 4 wins, so a win in for every 2 games they've played so far this year. But you look at those, and that round 2 win against Geelong does seem like a while back now. But after that, North Melbourne, West Coast, and GWS. So not exactly the sides they'll be competing with for a top 8 spot. You look at their run last year, I think they only had 2 wins against eventual finalists after round 2 last year. So they get off to these great starts, but they do struggle at the back end of the season. And maybe that's what we're seeing already at the midway point in 2023.
Yeah, well, it is interesting. I mean, they've got the reigning Brownlow medalists, they've got 2 Coleman medalists. Do they have the number 1 list in the AFL at the moment?
You could certainly argue they do. Like you said, those 3 guys in Cripps, Kerno, and Mackay, add Sard and Doherty, some All-Australian talent right there. Sam Walsh, another one, arguably their best midfielder. Then Cerra, who's finding great form, George Hewitt. They've got stars all across the field. So I think on paper, arguably, yes, the best team in the competition. But at the moment, their ball movement, their decision-making across, I guess, that middle third of the field, trying to get into their forward 50 has really let them down over the last few weeks, namely against, I think, Brisbane and St Kilda. And the next few rounds for them is going to be really, really tough and really going to be the challenge to see just where they sit. Now, they face the Bulldogs this week, followed that by a huge game against Collingwood. Then they've got the Swans, the Demons, and then another massive clash against rivals Essendon. So these next 5 weeks, on top of that Brisbane loss, are really going to show us what this Carlton outfit is capable of.
So what changes do they need to make, if any?
Well, obviously the big decision for them this year, from an off-field standpoint and a contract standpoint, is Tom De Koning. Now, I don't think he's a player that they need to be tightening their salary cap any further for. They've already admitted they've got a top-heavy budget in where they're allocating their money at the moment, and that any offer that they're going to try and have to match is going to be close to 700k, 800k. So you'd think they'd be paying a bit less than that if they can retain him, but by no means is he a player that they should be putting themselves in a dangerous position for financially, just going off potential. Now, we know he's not in their best team at the moment. They've asked him to play a bit more VFL footy. He's likely to make a return through the VFL this week after his head knock. But at the same time, Mark Pitnet ranking as the best or the most efficient ruckman so far to start this season. And yeah, I think they certainly could be building around Pitnet. He's not the most, healthy player from year to year. He'll miss a few games here and there. And I think that's where they can maybe look to put in some of those financial resources. Look for a second ruckman or someone that will still compete with Pitnet, like a Jordan Sweet, a Matt Flynn, and Braden Pruse. These are the kind of guys that are also off contract that aren't going to break their bank. So, if I was the Blues, I wouldn't be pushing all that hard to keep Tom De Koning. Great player, great potential, but for the price tag and the position he could put them in, certainly not one they have to be trying to lock away for sure.
Yeah, so some big decisions to come for Blues, and hopefully the Blues fans stick in there, because it is quite a roller coaster being a Blues fan at the moment. So moving on to the rookie rankings, we have a new face in the top 5.
Well, it seems quite Carlton themed at the moment. So while we've kind of just talked about some of the issues the Blues are facing, one positive for them over the last few weeks has been Alex Chincotta. Absolute standout for them in defence. Came in when they were out without Doherty, without Sard, and then when those 2 came back from injury, he was still right in that side and still playing a really great role for them. Just balanced, composed. He's 26 years old, so he's been through the VFL system for some time. Came over to Carlton from Geelong and had some knee issues that really hurt his AFL hopes, but the Blues threw him a chance in the pre-season, and now he finds himself not only playing consistent footy for the Blues, but in the top 5 of our rookie rankings, as you mentioned. So, like I said, our rookie rankings aren't the same as the Rising Star. They kind of just take in all debutants from this year, so no matter what age or those kind of parameters, it's just if you haven't played a game before this year. So he finds himself at number 5. Harry Sheezel holding his spot at 1, Ashcroft at 2. Max Michaelani at 3, Ollie Holland, so another blue at 4, just ahead of Chincotta, and then Ruben Jimby and Mateus Philippou at 6 and 7. Those two just falling back spots, while Chincotta shoots straight up into the top 5.
Interesting stuff. All right, so we're going to take a look now at the bottom of the ladder. Usually we focus at the top, but there's only 1.7% separating the Eagles and Hawks at the moment.
Yeah, well, the Hawks in 18th and the Eagles just ahead of them. Those two swap spots after differing losses for them both. So both got losses, but a bigger one to the Hawks has seen them fall a spot on the ladder. And yeah, it's a kind of an interesting discussion point at this point of the year, just given the mid-season draft is right around the corner, and whoever can get first dibs on the most in-demand talent for that take-in is going to be likely one of those two clubs. Now they play each other next week. That's going to be a really interesting game just to see how that unfolds for not only the mid-season draft, but maybe the race for Harley Reid next year, at the end of this year. Sorry. So that's going to be quite interesting. Really tight at the moment, as you mentioned, 1.7% separating them. And the Eagles will play the Suns this week. So that could be a winnable game. It's going to be quite tough for them given their injury list. The Hawks have Melbourne, so you could probably chalk them down for a loss at this point.
Yeah. Well, the Suns looked pretty decent against the D's. They probably should have won that one. But so we've taken a look at the two at the bottom. So what about just above those guys?
So you've got, North Melbourne just sitting above them. And surprisingly, I guess at this point of the year, Richmond as well. Now the Tigers played Geelong on Friday night. North played Port Adelaide. They'd be staring at losses for each of those. So they're probably going to be staying right in that pack, just sitting above. And like I said, in 2 weeks' time when West Coast play Hawthorn, one of them could really be jumping up and threatening them in those spots just a couple rungs higher. And then I think it's just ahead of them is the Suns. Now, as we mentioned, they play West Coast, so they can really break themselves away from that bottom 4 pack with the win this weekend against the Eagles.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a look at the winners and losers at the moment. So a couple of winners, some informed forwards.
Yeah, well, one big winner on Sunday, Brody Myercheck. Absolutely brilliant, a fantastic goal, but actually a couple of fantastic goals with that one on the line and then that great snap from 35 out. 4 or 5 goals in the second half to really be the match winner for the Pies. So he was a big winner on our list. And then another one's Oscar Allen. Yes, West Coast aren't doing as well as maybe some might have thought, but he's been a standout for them. Multiple goals in all games. Only player beside Jeremy Cameron to do that so far this year. So yeah, a couple forwards making a winners list this weekend.
Yeah, and what about the losers?
Well, kind of sticking with that Collingwood-Sydney game, the Swans, record in Melbourne, or in Victoria, I should say, so far this season's probably been a bit of an issue. Now, they were certainly in the game against the Pies up until that final quarter and certainly fell apart and one they'll be assessing once again. But the performance against the Demons at the same venue earlier this year was certainly a struggle for them. You look at the game against Geelong at GMHBA, and then all that comes after their game in the grand final last year at the MCG. So probably not a massive concern, but something that they'll be wanting to find form at the MCG or in other Melbourne venues and Victorian venues as the season goes on. And then another loser, just a quick one, it was Sunday's twilight game for the 22-odd thousand that were there. That was one to quickly forget. Saints fans can quickly take the win and run, and North Melbourne, I guess that's the kind of form and footy they've been used to across the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, interesting stuff. All right, so finishing up as always with our MVP. So pretty much everyone polled in the top 10.
Yeah, everyone did. And it's seen us have a new leader, Marcus Bontempelli, his 4th perfect game of the season. And I think all 4 of them have come since round 3. So he's leapfrogged Nick Dacos. And then you've also got Christian Petrarca, Clayton Oliver, right in that hunt. Both polling against the Suns. Now, Noah Anderson actually got all 20 votes, or a perfect 20 votes in that game, but yeah, Clarion Track both polling well. Jordan Dawson, Jeremy Cameron in their game also polled. Tim English, another one to join the Bont among the vote getters for the Bulldogs in their win over GWS. And then on top of that, 2 Saints in Jack Sinclair and Cal Wilkie were leading the way and featuring in the top 10 after 8 rounds.
Yep, some exciting stuff. Jeremy Cameron looking great again. He's my pick for Brownlow, I think, this year. I've said it on a couple of podcasts. For some reason, I just think he's going to get it.
It'd be great to see a forward win it. At the moment, as well as Dacos has been, I can't see Bontempelli not winning it at this point. I think just with, even when clubs are trying to negate him and tag him, even GWS were trying to put clamps on, he just ended up having one of his career best games. So that goes to show, while I think the Magpies are more than happy for Dacos to receive that tag because it sees them win in other areas of the field. He'll get free on a few games and certainly get more votes after his hot start. But yeah, I don't think we can go past the Bont.
Yeah, interesting stuff. All right, that wraps it up for this week. Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you, Phoenix.
And don't forget, you can always catch up on the latest AFL news on zerohanger.com.